Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Artcasters number 273, and we're bringing back our favorite guest, who's also kind of not a guest and kind of a host in a way.
I'm a favorite now. That's exciting, though.
Well, one of my favorite people that I don't get a chance to talk to anymore because they canceled the 48-hour art check, and I've been like super busy on Mondays when they're doing the IRS show and everything. So you may see Cory a little more frequently on here, just until I get everything straightened out and back to a regular schedule where I can because I really do. I want to do some of those indie reviews. I've got some books in mind, and but yeah, it's a little different. So I'll probably be, maybe at least every other time it's my turn, maybe Cory for a little while. We'll see.
Fun.
Yeah. So anyway, but
I'll tell you, Scott, our hangouts are more popular than the show.
Yeah, so far.
When we do that, okay, that's the show. Now we're going to go over to this other channel and have it and just hang out and talk, and then everybody shows up.
Now, are those on the IRS channel or those?
No, they're on our channel. So we're trying to. We've been in this big debate of like, is it because it's on this new channel? Is it because the content's boring to people? Like, I don't know. It's interesting. But
yeah, I don't think YouTube is. I think it's just because it's a small channel or whatever, they're not promoting it or what.
Yeah.
Because even though I'm subscribed and everything, I can't remember if I hit the bell or not, but I get notifications for stuff I'm not even subscribed to, and I had never got one notification. And one time I thought I went to the site, or I was looking for I thought you missed the show or something, and I couldn't find it. And then I went, and then I did find it eventually later. So I don't know. It's I think people aren't being alerted to it or whatever.
Yeah.
When you first said you were going to do that you were going to start a new channel, because I was thinking about that myself for another project that I was going to do and everything. So yeah, it's tough. I don't know the answer to that, but I mean, it's a great show. It's a great show, and I mean, just the everything about it, the from the branding to the URL you guys got, and just the way you do the audits and all that kind of stuff. I mean, and balancing the books. I love it. So very cool, especially around this time of year. Well, I guess today technically is. I mean, it was tax day, but they extended it and everything. So
this season
I actually got my taxes done 2 weeks early.
Yeah,
for the first time in like 6 years. I'm so excited.
I got them done early and was excited until I saw how badly like freelancers got screwed in California by taxes. Plus, it's the first year where Californians couldn't write off state from federal. So it's like anyhow, yeah, it was a big headache. But anyhow.
All right. Well, anyway, let's go do what we always do. We'll do our little plugs and everything, and then we'll get into the topic. And so you're on my channel, so I'm gonna guess you might know who I am, but if you don't, I'm Scott with Circworks Art Labs. You can find my stuff at circworks.com. You can also find my videos on YouTube, Circworks on YouTube, right here, actually. In addition to this show, the Artcasters that we do, I also have a series called Making Comics 101, and it is a step-by-step. If anything you want to know about making comics, it's got all of the basics. It's a 101 course, and it will either teach you stuff that you've never learned or give you a good refresher course if you know some of that stuff. But there's tons of content up there, and just you can either pick and choose any particular area of making comics you want to watch, or you can watch the whole thing through. I put a lot of time in it, and I'm pretty proud of it. So I always promote it. And so anyway, what about you, Josh? What do you have to promote?
All right. Well, I have, and I'm sure this is a shock to everybody who watches the show, but 2 stories. My graphic novel. It's a confessional graphic memoir that grapples with questions of faith, mental illness, depravity, and ultimately redemption in a fallen world. And right now, if you go to Amazon, it's weird because it fluctuates all the time. But if you're fortunate enough, the last time I checked, it was like on sale for like $13. I noticed like yesterday it was full price. I have no idea, but you can get a pretty good deal on Amazon, especially with Prime. You get free shipping. So good way to support indies, support the book, help the ranking go up on Amazon, and also get a really good value on a book that would cost like almost twice as much if it's still like at that discount rate. So yeah, that's my thing. Oh, and then also I post a lot of vlogs now on my main channel. So on Joshua Kemble on YouTube, I pretty much have been posting like almost daily. And so go check out my daily vloggings and live streams where I hang out with Cory at like 3 a.m. So yeah, that's my stuff. Oh, and check out Cory's stuff, which he's going to mention. So
yes. Yeah, so I've got 2 quick things. First one is go watch this video. It's on my channel. It's also on corykerr.com/online where I promote whatever the newest thing is that I want everybody to watch. But this is a video that I did where I learned, yes, this is a video that if you would like to watch about a bloody Wacom tablet. I didn't intend for that to look like blood, but I guess with the skeleton and everything, Wacom thought the same thing. So anyway, I'm doing a little thing with Wacom I'm excited about because that's a big deal for me because I typically don't work with people where that people recognize their name. So there's that. And then you can go watch that video. It's a frame by frame animation on like how to link drawing each frame, like rotoscoping in Photoshop, to actually animating that in After Effects, which is a new trick that I taught myself for this animation. And then this is a show that Scott is welcome to join at any point in time, but Josh and I do. And we had Gary on recently, and every week we cover comic books and movies and animations and other types of things that we love and are inspired by. And so I don't know, seems to be a rather violent and bloody promotion today since I picked the Lady Killer one that's also full of blood and gore. But so those 2 things. I actually really don't like horror, so I don't know why there's a theme right now. But yeah, go check those out. They're all it's all at corykerr.com/online. That's where you can find all of those things.
So I have a question, Cory. Since you've been working with Wacom or Wacom or Wacom, that's my question. Did you get a definitive answer on how to pronounce it?
I really should have done that, and I think before I make the next behind the scenes, I'm going to ask. But Josh's wife speaks Japanese. It's a Japanese company, and Josh says Wacom.
Okay.
I know that that's not a logical jump on as if that means anything.
Yeah, because I don't make that jump.
Completely wrong. but that was why I changed from. I used to call him Wacom, which I don't. It's always sounded weird to me.
Wacom sounds like whack-a-mole. That's why I've always said Wacom.
Wacom sounds a little bit better, but
yeah,
I don't know.
I say Wacom, even though that's probably not what it is.
Wacom's cool though, because that sounds like Pac-Man. Just waka waka waka. Right?
I always just refer to the actual thing, like the Cintiq or the Intuos or whatever. Those, I feel like they named those better. But
yeah, that's true.
I'm sorry, Scott. Did you say or Fozzie?
Or Fuzzy Berry. Waka waka.
Sorry, that's
I'm gonna switch over to this.
So
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, find out so we know for sure.
Okay.
But that's awesome that you're doing that partnership. That's pretty cool. I didn't even know that you. I know you mentioned that you had been talking to him, but there was no. Not that you hadn't heard anything back definitively or anything. So I just happened to stumble. Plus, that's how out of the loop I am, and that's why I wanted you back on the show. Is because I didn't even know that you. I didn't even know that you got that endorsement deal set up. So.
We're doing a deal. I'm doing 3 animated loops for them for their Instagram and some behind the scenes stuff. And I got a 22-inch Cintiq. So
awesome. Yeah. How is it? I mean, I've got an old one, but I'm still pretty happy with it. I can't really complain.
Man, I loved my old one. I mean, I still have it, and I moved it to my office. So I've got my new one in my studio and my old one in my office. But it started to. I bought mine used 10 years ago, and
Me too. Same thing.
Yeah, I don't know. You must be luckier than I am, because it started to just be a little bit weird. Like, and we have basically the same system. I think I added some RAM after the fact, but like I couldn't right click anymore, and then it was like I would have to, like, every 2 days just unplug it and plug it back in so it would start working again. Stuff like that, which is doable. You know, none of those are like, I can still draw on the screen, which is the whole point. But the newer one, man, is phenomenal. And I got really excited about getting a 32-inch. And I have a couple, like, more freelance work than I want right now, which I know I'm not complaining about that, but I don't want freelance work. But it's just one of those situations where I have it. So I set some money aside for the 32-inch because I like drawing big. Like, even when I thumbnail like 20 by 30. And so, like, having like a 32-inch would almost be like having a 20 by 30 notepad. And
I'm right there with you. I love to. I mean, I know a lot of people. I've got an iPad Pro, and I know a lot of people love drawing it, and they're doing full comics on it. But for me, I just like I like having a big canvas, and I mean, yeah, I just, to the point where I haven't really done much comics on my iPad Pro. I'll do some sketching and stuff on it, and I like the iPad Pro.
Yeah,
I
love the iPad Pro too, but it's almost like trying to compare, like an SUV to like a two-door. Like, I have a Honda Accord and a Honda Pilot. I use them differently. You know what I mean? Like, when I'm going kayaking and I need to pull a trailer, I'm not going to bring the Accord. Right. But when I'm going long distance and I'm by myself, I'm going to take the Accord, not the Pilot. But like the Cintiq and the iPad are like that for me. Like, if I'm mobile and I'm out and about, or I'm hanging out with the family, or I just want to sketch down some ideas, or I'm in a meeting or whatever, like, the Cintiq doesn't make sense, but it's nice that I can illustrate on the road. I can illustrate away from my studio when I want to, or capture an idea, or whatever. I love it, but I don't think one takes away from the other. And until they get, I think you said this actually, Scott, until they get an iPad that's twice the size, I don't think it's going to replace the Cintiq. Yeah.
Well, what sizes? I know this isn't totally on topic, but it's interesting, so we're going to talk about it anyway. What do you know? The Cintiq, because or I don't know what it's maybe it's not a Cintiq, but whatever they used to call them sidekicks or something like that, or don't they have a portable version?
Oh yeah, they never really worked that well, from what I understand.
Okay.
I knew some students that had some of the earlier models of that, and it ran. It was like a Cintiq when you plugged it into a computer, and then it was like its own computer that ran an Android operating system on its own. The battery life was like less than an hour. They're really heavy. I mean, it was neat. It was like the Zune, right? There was a lot of really great things about it, but it was just kind of a little bit before its time.
Okay.
And Apple did it better. So very much like the Zune in that case. Yeah. I don't know if they still do those or not.
I haven't heard much about them, so I don't know. I mean,
yeah, but they're small too. They're like the size of an iPad Pro.
That's what I was going to ask, if they were any bigger than or not.
No, I mean, I have this desire to like live off the grid. Like, it's something inside of me where I want to like be totally mobile. And I mean, at one point in time, I almost, like, when I graduated college, I wasn't married and I wasn't dating anybody. And I was literally minutes away from like buying a houseboat or a sailboat and just like living in the Puget Sound and like telecommuting. But it was like early 2000s. And so I was like, it's not going to work. So anyway, I kind of went away from that. But but I actually tried to make the Cintiq portable. I researched like Pelican cases, and I tried to like attach backpack straps to a Pelican case. Anyway, this whole thing, Cintiqs just aren't portable. They're just so. I tried though. I tried to make it that way because I just really think it would be cool to just like, you know, I don't know. I worked for a guy one time that owned a sailboat, and he did a lot of video editing, and he ran a generator that would charge batteries, and then he would run his laptop and external monitors off of the batteries that he would charge, and he would go out to like the lake for like the weekend and just like work and fish and swim and sail. And there's always some sort of like, you know, I don't know. I'm going to be that crazy old man that ends up living in like a 6x6 shed and growing beans next to a river or something.
So like Cory, if you ever disappear from the streams randomly, we should just assume you just went full Walden Pond.
Yeah,
you just throwed it out. You're like, I'm done with this business. I'm gonna go live in the woods.
I have one kayak that I've dedicated to like modifying, and eventually that kayak will become like a livable space.
That's why there's so many kayaks, so you can build like, you know.
I'm gonna have like a flotilla.
Yeah,
I will like Mad Max style, World style, attach them all together, and just the Snake River will become my domain. Yeah, I don't know. Why did we start talking about my craziness?
I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I the whole living off the grid totally, but I definitely do want to do like some actually traveling. Like it'd be cool to get like a trailer and something where I can bring my work with me and work from wherever. But
I think the trailer or the like converted van is like, you know, a very tempting situation, you know? Yeah. So I knew a guy who his idea, he was going to retire. I worked with him, and I said, so what are your retirement plans? And he said, I'm selling everything I own, and my wife and I bought an RV, and we're going to drive north in the summer and south in the winter, and we're just going to lap the U.S. between, you know, Phoenix, Florida, and Idaho until we're dead. And I was like, okay. I used to this is again before I was married. I used to do these motorcycle trips where I would like sleep in the beach or on the side of the freeway or whatever. And this is back when I would pack heat. I'm not a huge gun fan anymore, but it makes sense when you're sleeping on the side of the freeway and you're riding a motorcycle. So I have like a bar of soap, a 357, a camera, a notebook. I'd bring one book with me. And like a change of underwear, change of shirt. And I would live like that for weeks. And just drive.
You were like Jack Kerouac without the drugs.
Yeah. It was great. I wish I had more money because I could have had a more reliable motorcycle at the time, but I was doing it on this 25-year-old Honda. And it was interesting. It blew up in between Vegas and Mesquite one time, and if you've ever been on that road, there's nothing in between Vegas and Mesquite.
Oh man!
So I was stranded on I-15 in the middle of the Nevada desert in August. But anyway, what I must be very rambly. Anyway, yeah, I've done that, and I at one point in time was trying to be a photographer, and so I had a camera and stuff. And so on one of these trips, my idea was I'm going to make coffee table books that are based around just the pictures that I take on these trips. So I'd like drive through like the great sequoias and the redwoods and go to all these beautiful places on my bike, which I would recommend if you're ever going to go somewhere nice, do it on a motorcycle. A car isn't worth it. You should just stay home and look at pictures of it. It's a totally different experience. And I ran into the most interesting people. I ran into these potheads that were like, going to this festival in Portland where there's like a marijuana festival. And this is like 2005. So it's like nothing was legalized at this point or anything. But they were like runaways. I ran into these. Anyway, one of the people that I ran into was a couple, and they had retired and bought this really nice Road King Harley, and she had electric everything, electric gloves, electric vest, electric pants. Like she was just decked out in like total temperature control leather, and just sat on the back reading books and listening to music as they drove around. And they were on their 11th lap of the US when I bumped into them. Wow. They said, we're just never going to take the same road. And they slept in hotels, which is nicer than the ground that I was sleeping on at the time. But yeah, the mobile life, man, that's the problem is you kind of have to shun society and it, go against a lot of the values that I currently hold, like being a member of society and being helpful to people. And you kind of have to decide, but there's a whole segment of society that no one ever sees or knows about, that I didn't know existed until I started living on the road. And it is there's a community, and there's trade, and it's its own economy, and there's this own. It's like a separate. It's almost like a parallel dimension. Like they take up the same space, but nobody ever sees them. They're phased out. It's interesting.
It's another dimension.
I don't think so, but I mean, it's almost like that because they don't have day jobs. Like you would never run into any of these people in a normal day-to-day intercourse. You'd never in your travels. Commuting, going to work or grocery shopping, you'd never run into any of these guys.
Sorry, I have to cynically admit that I was saying another dimension in hopes somebody else would go another dimension, so we could get all of these people. I was hoping somebody would be like, another dimension? Another dimension. Anyway, sorry. That's awesome, though. I think that
Gary says that his work intersects with a bit of a parallel society too, so that makes sense. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking about weird things I did 20 years ago.
I love it, though.
Super interesting. It'll lead into how do you make that work? I mean, as far as if you did want to travel and do all that stuff, I mean, obviously. You've got to. There's a lot of planning involved, and what we're talking about today is kind of how to kind of plan our lives. What we've all three of us have super crazy, really ambitious schedules with our work, but we also have families and other. Some of us have. Some of us don't have other goals other than. Well, we do. I think we all do, other than art and family and stuff like that. But I was watching. I was watching one of the recent videos where Cory, it sounded like you pretty much gave up on the working out thing, but the fitness thing.
I wish I didn't. So it's not like I gave up. It's that.
Yeah, this one I wouldn't like. If Cory had just flat out given up, we may be done with the 48-hour art check, but I'd give him grief for it. But this I can definitely attest to. This was not him giving up. This was his body being like, "Sorry, dude, no, this isn't going to happen for a while."
I had to shift any physical activity that I was doing because I was bulking up. I was starting to lift again, and I used to be. I mean, I've won weightlifting contests for my weight class and stuff before, and back in the day, we were always better when we were younger.
Not always. I was nerdy and scrawny. I'm in better shape now than
here's the Benjamin Button of working out.
Well, no, I just was that out of shape as a kid, that nerdy.
But I was getting back into it, and I bought all the equipment I needed, and I converted one of the rooms of my home into a workout area. The problem is that then we got pregnant, and so then that room went away, and at the same time, lockdown happened, and that went from me sitting in a chair a lot to me sitting in a chair all the time. And it fell apart. So my back and my arms and my shoulders and everything. I've spent the last year in physical therapy and chiropractic work and everything. So everything I'm doing right now is just trying to get back to healthy. I'm not working out at this point. I'm like doing physical therapy exercises so that I can still maintain the use of my arms like, and back and stuff. And so I haven't given up on working out. I'm just trying to get back to whatever. But then also I've come to realize that like, it's not a healthy mental state for me to want to be as fit as I was when I was 17.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm a 41-year-old man. I don't need a six pack. I just don't want to be uncomfortably out of shape, but I don't need to be as fit as I was when I was a 3-sport high school athlete with, genetics on my side and, in my youth. And so like this like idea that, adults need to be like in fit physical condition, I think is something that the media kind of feeds us, so my health goals have changed towards, away from like this idealized thing that I don't have the genetics for, towards like, if this is how I feel when I'm 40, I don't want to feel like this when I'm 90, and I'm planning on being around for a while. So,
yeah.
So that's kind of that. I don't know.
Yeah. For me, it's like I don't even, the whole being fit thing, I don't know that's the goal for me. Like if I would have done the kind of workout and stuff that I'm doing now when I was younger, I would have been in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
I was kind of like Josh, but now I'm just doing it so I don't get, I'm not tipping the scales and everything. Cause it's like, I do all this stuff, not to, like you said, not to get a six pack, but just not to have a gut and everything. And so far it's just crazy the amount I run and the amount I work out and everything, and still not being able to just like, okay, I'll have a hamburger if I want.
Honestly, and I've recently decided I am a guy with a gut. I'm a fat guy, and I'm just going to embrace that. I'm okay with it.
I think it's just fascinating to me, like because I agree with Scott on that. It's like from where I come from, like it's like I literally was like a beanpole. Like when I was younger, I was just like no muscle whatsoever, and it is sad in retrospect because it's like working out would be easier now had I developed a habit back then. And had I developed a habit back then, it wouldn't have been that hard to build muscle compared to now. Whereas like now you do this really intense workout and then it's like, that's great. That means I'm not going to have back pain for a week. Like that's kind of the main goal for me is just maintenance. And I'll even trick myself and forget every once in a while. And then I'll feel all painful and like I get like those knots in my back because I sit at a desk all day, and like it's just like it just becomes really apparent where it's like, okay, I guess I'm just at that age where it's like you either do this or you just start feeling like crap like all the time. So I don't know. But yeah, so I'm kind of with you on that, Scott. It is amazing how much work it takes just to kind of maintain, and like I have a belly, but it's not huge, and it just to maintain it at the like small pot like state that it's in is like that's the workout.
Yeah, I feel you. So I mean, so I guess we're all doing some form of exercising. We all have family. We're all pretty ambitious. Some of us have two of the three out of us have a day job, and it amazes me the productivity you guys have, seeing that you do have a day job and still are just crushing it with all the side projects and everything. So how do we, I mean, do you guys have trouble balancing all this? Or one thing that I'm finding is that I'm realizing now through going through some of the leadership training and everything that I'm going through is that, one, I don't have to sacrifice things like, my family and everything. Not that I don't want to say that I was doing that, but I could be doing more, and lately I have been, and I'm still trying to get to that place where I'm really creating a balance between all these different goals, whether it's working, I've got goals to, my fitness goals, which are diet and exercise. I've got I was super ambitious with my business goals, which I'm behind on those, but still making tons of progress. I mean, I like I said, I was super ambitious. So even if I get half of what I put, on my goal thing done, it's going to be good. But and then just trying to really reconnect and have deeper connections with my family, with my kids, and things like that. And also I'm doing like a community service goal. So all of these things, and of course there's things that just come into your life that you weren't really expecting to do. And then some of those things, like, there's a chance, I guess I'll know more in the next couple of days. There's a chance I might be going to Florida next week.
I'm sorry. Sorry.
Well,
I always trash Florida.
My only concept of Florida is based off of Burn Notice, and so like Florida seems like the ideal place to go.
Oh, see, my vision of Florida is always like the Florida Man articles, and I'm just like, wow, just you're gonna go there? Like, just stay away from the guys on bath salts and alligators.
Well, I mean, you hear all these crazy things about Florida. I did hear there was some kind of I heard something about a lot of that has to do with the way they report the news, because a lot of that crazy stuff in other states is like private, or you can't report on it, or some weird thing. I can't remember exactly, but in Florida, everything is, I mean, it's all that knowledge is public to share and everything. So you hear a lot more about that crazy stuff. But no, if I end up going, the reason why I'm going would be to watch the SpaceX launch. So
sweet.
Yeah. So I'm waiting to see on that. But so I don't know if that's going to happen, but that's something that I was not planning on. And I found out about this maybe yesterday, that this might happen. And if it happens, it'll be next week. So things like that, they come into your life, and it's like, I could just be like, oh, that would be really cool, but I've got so much work. I don't know but how often am I going to get a chance to do that? So
yeah.
Sometimes when something like an opportunity like that comes up, you got to figure out how to put it in your schedule, and then everything shifts and everything. So right now, the main thing I'm trying to do is just think and be sort of live in this abundant mindset where there's time for everything, and be more focused with each task that I'm doing, rather than just. And a lot of that is cutting out a lot of the nonsense and stuff, and a lot of it's a state of mind, because no matter what you do, you're not going to find more than 24 hours a day, and of course you need some sleep in there. But sometimes even super productive people like ourselves, I found that I was wasting a lot of time just not being as productive in the moment as I can, because I had all kinds of other crap in my mind that was not allowing me to be productive, because I'm either worrying about things or being angry about things, or all the stuff going on in the world, and
hesitating.
Where you realize that either that's something you can't control, or one of the things that I'm doing is that learning is that you're responsible for everything. And once you kind of come to that realization, then it's all up to you. You're not worried about, life isn't happening to you. It's life is happening for you. So these are some of the things that I've got a long road ahead of me and everything, but these are some of the things that I'm adopting, and I'm trying to get present to and everything. And it's helping, but still, it's still like I've got all these business goals and stuff that I set that I'm not meeting. Whereas maybe before I could meet them, but what kind of life was I leading before? Because I wasn't, and that consumed pretty much everything. And it was just like, oh, I'll find time, I can maybe squeeze some time in for family and stuff like that. So I'm just trying to, and I got to stop saying trying. I'm finding ways to basically have it all, that's my goal. So, and it's just creating a balance and being present with everything. But I don't know what about you guys? I think I'm guessing we pretty much all marvel at each other's productivity, but like I'm watching now that Josh is back to doing YouTube and all these blogs and everything. I was asking how he did it before the show. And he's a lot of that's just on my commute, but then you still have to edit that stuff. And it may not be highly edited, but there's still that. And then you're doing music and you're still finding time to read to your son and do all that kind of stuff. So I don't know, what are some tips that you have? I kind of shared some of the things that I'm entering into and that I'm adopting, but what about you guys? What are some of the things that work for you and maybe some things that don't?
I don't know. That's why I wanted to do this thing, because both of you brought up things this last week on YouTube where I was like, I would like to talk about that.
Yeah.
Because Josh was talking about like triaging things. I don't know what it is that I seem to do that puts off this idea that I'm productive, but I am very much not. and I don't know. I mean, I look at what like Scott does.
Yeah.
I know that you're doing like a full-time situation with art, whereas I'm on a part-time situation because of the day job, but like still you're infinitely more productive. Even if you were to cut your hours in half or by a third, I still think you'd be making more than I am.
Yeah. See, I don't feel like I am, but I probably am. but I know I am. But it's like, yeah. A lot of it, people just don't see the stuff that I'm working on. Whereas I mean, you did that whole thing with Jim with the animation a while back, and just the fact that I at least for me, and I think you've probably sorry to cut in on you, Cory. I'll let you finish your thought, but I think you've streamlined your animation to a point where you can do things that would take a lot of people a lot of time rather quickly, and that's a plus too, because as long as you can find ways and systems and stuff to expedite the process without sacrificing the quality, then that does afford you a little more time to play like a Rocket League or whatever you want to do. So
right, and then then what I do is I'm like, now that I've optimized that, now I'm going to do frame by frame traditional rotoscoping animation.
and like we on this is just an example of how Cory's mind will work. So on the stream, he was showing me a video he did that had fairly simple animation. It's very cool graphic, but it's got like maybe 4 movements. And the camera, and then it has live action in like high contrast. And I was like, oh, okay, so you're gonna do that. And he was like, no, I'm gonna have that like open and close and morph into a different camera and then morph into a different camera. And I was like, oh, okay, so you were taking a fairly simple concept that would take some time and making it 50 times more challenging.
Yeah.
But I think that's the cool thing about the way you work, Cory, because I think that's the neat thing. You're always leveling up and always kind of going like, I wonder if I could go further,
Right.
Sorry.
Because of that, like if you can imagine how inefficient it is to never be satisfied with a process and to constantly be, I think I'm almost compulsively optimizing my process, because as soon as I get it to where it's like finely tuned, I'm like, all right, how can I break it or level up or make it better or weirder or whatever? I don't know that it's really that healthy, but like it is interesting. I'm reading a book right now called Big Magic, which I'd really recommend. It's How to Live a Creative Life, and it's phenomenal. It's like all the, I don't know if Scott, if you would like it, but you might. And one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you recently is because you mentioned meditation.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. And
I'm fascinated to hear how that is going for you, because what you refer to as like woo woo, right? I kind of believe very strongly in the spiritual nature of things, and that there are forces out there. I believe in God obviously as well, but I also believe that, like, however you want to describe it, like the Greeks and the Romans referred to these beings outside of time, outside of temporal physical space, that are the genius that inspires the poets and the artists, and that's talked about in like the War of Art or whatever. But I really do believe that there is a source of inspiration that you can tap into, that's available to people, but you have to show up and do the work and make make yourself tuned into the right channels to be able to do that. And so this book, Big Magic, is actually about that. And it's like that one chapter in War of Art that kind of gets a little bit weird and metaphysical, but that's the entire book. Anyway, it's only about 5 hours long. I've listened to 4 hours of it today, just as I was running errands and stuff. But anyway, I don't know. I'm fascinated with that type of thing. But a big part of this book has clarified something for me, that I am not doing any of this for commercial success.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think there's nothing that I'm about to say is a judgment on anybody, because everybody's going to choose their own path, and I think that's cool, like you do. But for me, it's I've often jokingly referred to it as self-medicating. Like, I self-medicate with art because I just don't feel right when I'm not producing. But the way that she is describing it in this book is it feels like a lot of like the stuff that I haven't been able to articulate, which is I think humanity at its core, like every individual, every human, is creative, and yet society has built a system around like making that mystical and making it unreachable and making it scarce. Like, the fine art world is a ridiculous setup to cause scarcity in art and make it feel like it's only certain anointed people that are allowed to do it. Because otherwise it wouldn't be financially viable for the few people that are in fine art. Whereas commercial art, is more realistic in that, if you learn the skills and you make the sacrifices to get to the point where you can produce, then you can produce, right? Beyond that, there's a third area, and I don't know that it has a good name, or if it has a good name, I don't know. I'm not aware of it. And I feel like that's where I live, where I have been a commercial artist. I've had some things with fine art or whatever, but like, my bread and butter is living in a space that feels really authentic to me, and the authentic version of myself where I feel okay and right is making art and communicating visually. And without that, I just don't feel right. And I believe that there are things that each one of us is here to produce or be or do, and that those things are to tap into our authentic creative nature. And you can be creative, in all kinds of different fields, but I think to validate your work with money, like if you need, I'm not saying that selling art is bad, because I do that as well. Obviously, most of my time right now in the last couple months has been paid work, right? But if you feel like you need to sell, like you're looking for the validation of your work, like I'm not a whole artist yet. I'm not a good enough artist yet until I have this type of financial success, or until my artwork makes this amount of money or whatever. I think that's putting the dross of the world into something that is the gems, the whole experience that we have here on Earth. What makes us human is, the ability to create and communicate in interesting and metaphorical and symbolic ways. And this book pointed out that there are cave paintings that predate our ability to farm, by tens of thousands of years. Like, agriculture came after art. So as useless from a survival standpoint art is, humanity felt it was more important than the ability to like sustainably eat on a regular basis.
However, what's funny is this kind of backs up what you're saying too, because this goes against the fine art world kind of concept of those cave paintings. A lot of those cave paintings served a function to tell a story for how to hunt.
Right.
And so artists, by doing art, were doing it so they could feed themselves. Like, right. And they could train others to feed themselves. And and then of course they did it beautifully. And that's the part that's like, was that necessary? Did they have to draw buffalo so beautifully gesturally? Like, I mean, right. Chevet Cave Like, look at those drawings. They're more sophisticated than like half the art students I ever taught.
Well, Picasso said we've learned nothing in thousands of years when he saw them. But then beyond that, you've got Pompeii, right? Have you ever read about the graffiti of Pompeii?
Oh, so cool.
It's like it is lowbrow, low art.
Yep, lewd on the wall. Lewd.
You know, it is nothing but you know, I mean, there's a lot of stuff, but there's also body humor, and there's stories told in pictorial form in outside of brothels and things. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I don't even want to say that like art should be important or needs to communicate, you know, a survival mechanism, though I believe that artists are very effective at doing those things. But it can also just be a release. It can just be fun, you know, it can just be entertaining. Or if not entertaining, because I'm not really entertained by it, it can be healing, you know? Yeah. Anyway, all of that is to say, I'm fascinated that you're taking on meditation, because I know that you typically have shied away from that type of thing in the past. And I want to hear your thoughts on like, if that has opened up like any sort of balance or any additional variables in this equation of life that you might not have noticed before, or that, you know, or are you doing it because you committed to do it, and when you're done with that commitment, you're going to be glad to be over with it? I'm kind of curious on that.
No. So for me, it wasn't the spiritual aspect of it that turned me off. It was originally, it was just sitting doing nothing. Because
okay.
I'm not a person that could like sit still, and like I have to be doing something. I mean, it's just like, so that's one of the reasons why I didn't, you know, I was joking with my coach when I said, that's why I've never done like any drugs or anything, because I don't want anything that's going to slow me down. And the stuff that speeds you up are way bad for you. The stuff that, you know, like certain things that slow you down might not be as, it might be okay or whatever. But so I'm not going to do that. But yeah, that's one of the reasons why I never got into, you know, marijuana or anything like that, just because I don't want to be slowed down. And I you know, see people are like, oh man, it's just, that's not me.
Yeah.
You know, that's not me. I gotta be alert. I gotta be, you know, all this stuff. So that I was joking about that, but yeah, so anything like that, anything that's going to slow me down, or anything that's going to where I got to sit still, I just can't sit still. Whether
so it wasn't an aversion to spirituality, it was just an aversion to production.
Not really, because the stuff that I'm doing now, I guess if you're a spiritual person, I'm sure it's a spiritual experience. You know, there's definitely a lot of, you know, the instructor, I guess you would call him instructor, that's guiding you through this. I mean, some of the stuff is just putting energy out and stuff like that, which is fine. And I don't disbelieve any of that stuff. I don't claim to understand it, and anything that I don't really understand, I just could be, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, that type of thing. And I don't think there's any way for anyone to truly comprehend or wrap their minds around whether, you know, the universe and all this stuff out there. I think it's beyond us as humans. Personally, I think it's beyond us as humans to comprehend that. So, but for me, it's just, for me, but I do believe, you know, put positive energy out. It's just, I mean, if you're being a positive person, if you're being loving, if you're being giving, all that stuff comes back to you. I mean, it just does, whether it's something in the universe or if it's just because that's how people see you, and they, you know, it's hard to see somebody doing that and not give that back in return. So yeah, there's a lot of, you know, some of it's just putting things out there or pulling things in from the ether or whatever. But for me, it's relaxing. It's letting me free my mind. And it's not like, at first when I was approached with this, my coach asked me if I would do it. I didn't know how, for all I knew, meditation was something that you sit and do for like an hour. And I assume some people do, or maybe more. This is like 15 minutes at the most. Sometimes, it's anywhere from like usually like 7 to 15 minutes or whatever. And so for me, it's like, well, that's something that I can squeeze in and do that. So I make that my first thing that I do in the morning. And that it just clears my mind, and it lets me to get to kind of release a lot of the negativity and stuff like that. And it's not, I haven't got to the point where I can totally clear my mind out of everything. And maybe that isn't even possible. I don't know, but it definitely gives me a little more presence, and for me to do, when doing that at the beginning of the day, the first thing when I wake up, I can always kind of call back to that if I get off track or whatever, center myself and just go back to, how am I being in this moment, and how is if something's not going right or whatever, how is that a reflection of the way I'm being? If something happens, and this does kind of get kind of woo woo or whatever, but if your car breaks down, how is that a reflection of you? How are you being in that moment that would cause that to happen? So, or if a good example would be like if you're on like a Skype call or a Zoom call or something like that, and and stuff starts breaking down, the communication starts breaking down. How is that a reflection of you? How you're being? Is your communication open? That type of thing. And whether you believe that or not, putting the onus on yourself instead of something out there that you have no control over. It's helpful for me. So I don't know if that makes sense or not.
I get that in the sense of I don't do it anymore, but for about a year I did yoga, and I found it really helpful, and it's actually a really killer workout. Like that's the main thing I liked about it. And then I'd feel better after. But whenever, like I was just doing it based on these videos, and I remember whenever the instructor would get all like, and Shavasana and all the kind of spiritual stuff where they're like, and now you're centering your chi and your energy is releasing. I'd just be like, I don't know. It feels good. That's fine for me. I don't need the I don't really, frankly, as a skeptic, I'm like, I don't really know if I believe there's like chakras opening up, but I do know this is doing wonders for my back. So I'll do that, but I also will say, I do think, kind of along with what Cory was saying, for me, there's a lot of peace in in my belief, and prayer is a huge part of it, right? And prayer is kind of like meditation, and you get it causes you to have this moment of like pausing and reflecting and analyzing and sort of being thankful for what's there, and then kind of looking at what you can do better and that kind of thing. The other thing I was going to say is just like what Cory said, I don't view myself as productive at all. Like I look at you guys and I'm like, it's always someone else is way more productive and not having, somehow they have the balance, right?
What is wrong with us?
Yeah.
I don't know.
but like, this is a thing I try to remind myself of is like, it is good to have a mindset of like a can-do mindset where it's like you're going to, and I've seen this with teams, especially leading teams, right? If you have a team that feels overloaded, they start being less productive. If you have a team that feels demoralized, they start being less productive, right? If you have a team that feels like, yeah, give us more, we'll take it. Like we're going to destroy it. Like we're going to do awesome. We're an unstoppable team. You can get so much accomplished. What's even weirder is sometimes even if you're not even thinking that, if you're just like task, do, like you're just kind of in the zone, like you can accomplish more than you can imagine. And so the mindset thing is a huge thing for like, I think for being able to kind of push forward. And a lot of that does have to do with just tackling a thing at a time, because like if you like your lists are always going to be impossible if you're making them right. you know?
So I don't even do lists or goals or anything.
Yeah. That's interesting.
That's one of the things I find with you guys that's fascinating to me is you are methodical and analytical about the way that you approach these tasks. And I'm like that guy that shows up and is just like, what are we going to do today? I don't know. Let's figure it out. You know, like, the idea of lists is like mind-numbingly horrible to me. Like, I hate it so much that it is awful. It's awful. I have to do it when I'm like working with other people. So like whenever I've done collaborations or I hire people or I'm hired by people, I have to do the project management side of it. I have those skills. I just hate it so much. I can't even express to you how much I hate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating. But you guys are really effective with it. Do you enjoy the lists?
No, I have a scattered mind, and so for me, if I tend to think if I don't write, and I'm wondering if Scott's here too, but it's like for me, if I don't write down like what my like what I've called it kind of like mentally triaging, because it's like the way I view like the amount of things I want to accomplish in a day are impossible, and I always make the impossible my goal, and rarely do I hit it, you know, but I always think I can. And like part of what helps me parse what to target first is lists, because like if I'm just thinking in my head, like I'll fill myself with anxiety over all the things, as opposed to just writing them out and being like, oh, okay, like this is the thing I have to target first. This is the thing next. Like it's not that complex, you know?
And so that makes me think that you have way more to do than I do. You know what I mean? Like you are more productive, because when I get really busy and I'm balancing like 4 projects and a job and everything, like I have to move into lists. But like, I wonder if the reason that I don't use lists is because I actually am significantly less productive than the two of you, because I think that you guys get way more done. But we all three think that. So I wonder if that's just my perception of it. But lists are like a last resort to me. Lists are like, you know, we're bleeding out, you know, we don't want to lose the leg. So we're going to like cut off the circulation just a little bit so that we can get to the hospital. You know, that's a list for me. Like that's when I use it. It's like, okay, everything, the wheels have fallen off the bus. Let's get out, you know, the last ditch emergency effort.
What's funny is for me, it's that's how I always feel like, and not like
really?
in a bad way. It's just like, I literally do have too much to do. And then I also have fun things I want to do, like the music project, where it's like, that's totally stupid, like, and fun. And I'm literally doing that for the pure function of fun. Right. But I have to work fun into it, because if all I do are like these tasks that are fun, like all of it's fun, but it's like, if all I do is like micro focus on tasks like having to do with books or art and something that's not a little outside of the wheelhouse, it's like, I think I'd go nuts. And I enjoy doing music, so it's like enjoyment is something worth pursuing too.
Yeah.
But I will say, unlike what you guys have described, like I'm not a person who wants to travel a lot. Like I travel by necessity most of the time, and I enjoy it when I do it. Like, you know, if I start doing conventions again, that'll be a good excuse to travel. Right. But it's like, for me, I might be a strange person in the sense that I don't enjoy things unless there's a task involved. If there's like a task involved, I can kind of get enjoyment out of it. But it's like I don't tend to like daydream about like wouldn't it be fun to go to London or something like that? Like I can imagine going to London and having fun, but it would usually be like, well, wouldn't it be cool if I had to travel there to like, you know, do my books or something? And I mean, I definitely enjoy the idea of like taking my kid to places, but it's like, I'm not like a person with like heavy wanderlust. So that's helpful too for me with like the multitasking stuff, because it's like I'm kind of a curmudgeon. Like I like being
Josh,
at home.
I want to go kayaking with you so bad just to see what you are like when you're just sitting there in a boat that isn't doing anything.
I have gone kayaking. I mean, in Catalina, I did kayaking, but it wasn't like real kayaking. And then I've done the Long Beach kayak, right? Like the little, there's like a whole area in Long Beach that you can kayak around. That's like
right.
a little, but I've never done like legit kayaking. That actually sounds relaxing though. And I have spent time in nature, just kind of enjoying it. And it is peaceful and fun, but it's like, it's not on the top of my list of things to do. Like to me, I feel I don't know. I think I'm kind of where Scott is at, and maybe it's not the most healthy thing, but it's like, I find myself like most of the things I think of wanting to do are all very creative projects. Like that's kind of what I think about all the time. So yeah, I don't know. I just think it's fascinating seeing like we all have like commonalities and yet subtle differences in our methods and stuff. It's interesting.
Yeah.
But for balancing it, I feel like I fail all the time at it. And that's where I feel like
you described that failure as like a significant part of your process.
Yeah, but like part of what helped me wasn't like self-help books or anything like that. It was just literally like that's where my faith becomes really important, because like I acknowledge that like I am not the author of everything. Like everything is not within my control. Like sometimes a car might spin out of nowhere and hit my car on a commute, things happen like that you don't have control over in life, and that's okay. Like and like much like Scott was describing, it's like you have to kind of focus on the things you do have control over, the things you have control over in situations, and we're not superhuman. So it's like I feel like I'm a pretty good dad, but I've totally failed as a dad before, and it bums me out that I fail as a dad sometimes. But you do. Like you can't be perfect. Like you're going to be awesome at your day job, and then you are horrible with your kid, and then you are great with your kid and you're horrible at your job, and it's like this constant ebb and flow. And I find like, I don't know, I think there is something to just kind of a flow state where you're just like Cory, you've described this too, and I think this is a commonality. But it's like when you can get in that mode where it's just like water, where you're like what Scott was describing, where it's like, okay, so this thing in Florida comes up. You're like water. You just kind of move with it. Like instead of like being rigid and being like, I have all these plans, like be like, I don't know, that's a new adventure, right? Like I think that water-like state is like what I always try to get to, and sometimes I do get there, and it's pretty great. And most of that has to do with just being in the moment and just kind of taking things as I can get them done. So it's like, okay, this comes up, take care of this. This comes up, take care of this. Like I have a window, I work on my comic. Like if I overthink it and like start obsessing about like things that like the end goal of my comic that I can't even reach until I've finished it, like then I'll get overwhelmed or whatever, And then with music, it's like, that's fun, but I want to work it in. So I force myself to do it. And that's where Scott's thing kind of ties in too, where it's like, I don't have the time to do music. I just make the time. Like, I'm like, every once in a while I get that thing Cory was describing, where it's like the inspiration that just the calling to do it. And it's like, when you get that, you have to chase it a little bit. You can't just quash that. If you quash that, you quash art, that like fun exploratory thing where you're like, I kind of want to mess around with this thing, or I want to splat some paint on a canvas. Like, like sometimes you actually need to do that. And I actually talked about that today. I was calling it like chasing your, I think I used the analogy of like, if you're a spa catalog artist, and that's your day job, and it's like you're doing spa parts, like illustrations of spa parts, and all you can daydream about is like a wizard van, and like painting a cool wizard and dragon on the side of like an 80s metal van, and that's just haunted you for years. Like you might need to just start making time to do the wizard van, because otherwise you're going to be miserable with the spa parts, and you're going to be miserable because you're not doing the wizard van. Whereas even if you just get like a Hot Wheel and you paint your little wizard on your van, like, you're going to feel better doing the spa stuff because you're like you're pursuing that calling, even if the calling's something as arbitrary and ridiculous as like a wizard van, which more and more I think is going to be one of mine. I don't know. What do you like Cory? I think you actually chase those a lot.
You don't want to travel anywhere.
What's up?
What are you going to do with the wizard van if you don't want to travel anywhere?
Well, see, that's the thing. If I had a cool 80s wizard van, I'd have to travel at least to like my friend's house down the street. Like, just drive there, honk the horn, have dry ice in the van all the time, so it just looks ridiculous when you open it.
It's the weirdest analogy.
It's a good one though.
Is that like this is such a specific thing? Are you actually like daydreaming about wizard vans? This is the first I've heard of this.
No, just wizard vans are pretty awesome. So I was just trying to think of something funny that a somebody who's stuck at a day job drawing spot catalog parts would like daydream about, like, where there's just like, I just wish. And then I even think I reversed the analogy where it's like, hey, you might also be a guy who's like getting hired to draw wizard vans and be like, I'm sick of drawing wizards. So what I really want to do is draw spa parts.
Yes. I think that's every artist's dream, is to draw spa parts.
Anyhow.
I really am excited for your future wizard van biopic comic. You're going to spend 3 years of your life drawing about this guy who invents or who builds the best wizard van
I would love to do a wizard van comic. That actually would be pretty cool. But I mean, like Cory, I think to me, like, the process you described sounds like you do that. Like, where it's like you get you kind of allow the muse to take you where it's going to take you in art. So it'll be like, I'm going to do this animation on this thing and try this thing because it's something I need to do. And I think that's actually pretty cool.
And that's why I find lists and organization to be really frustrating to me, is because I just want to do whatever feels right at the time.
Yeah.
Which is kind of how I've spent my entire career. Like, I'm like, my whole career has been, why are you doing this? I don't know. It just felt right at the time. Like, that's why I'm learning this thing or doing this project or whatever. And it worked out really good so far.
Yeah.
But it is a very weird serpentine path to wherever I am now, because I don't even know how to describe my experiences. It's like, why do we, if you're not doing the things that you want to do, why are you doing them? I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that we have to do to survive. Like, nobody wants to like go to work and like do what other people tell you to do, but that's like where money is. So we have to do that type of stuff. But like, that's the interesting thing is so one of the challenges that I have is spending time with my family. I love my family, and any opportunity that comes up to spend time, I do that. But that seriously hinders and is a sacrifice towards like other things that I want to do, like my art and stuff. And so the idea of this balance is this constant sacrificing of things that you want for things that you want more. You know what I mean? And so what I often wonder with people is, like, I was talking to a student who is in a major that he doesn't want to be in. And it didn't make any sense. I was just like, why? Like, why are you doing this? Like, you can choose anything you want. And you actually have some like really strong opinions about some things that I hate. You know what I mean? Like, so it's good that you are different than me, because if everybody was like me, that society would fall apart. We would all starve to death because there'd be no farmers, because I hate yard work. I mean, like, we need people that like different things and do different things and enjoy different stuff. But like, why are you choosing to do something that you don't like? That's what I don't get. Like, if it's not healing or fulfilling or satisfying or enjoyable, why are you doing that? So anyway, like the whole thing with that is like the challenge for me is to be present in the thing that I'm doing at the time, you know, and to not feel guilty when I'm not doing that thing about the other thing that I should be doing, you know? And so for me, it's like, I want to spend a significant amount of time doing the few things that are going to give me the most fulfillment, you know? So like, I want to be the best teacher that I can possibly be. I'm going to work my butt off to do that. I want to be the best illustrator and animator I can be. I'm going to work my butt off to do that. I want to be the best dad and the best husband I can be. I'm going to work my butt off to do that. And those are pretty much the three categories that I'm in, you know? And it's interesting to me when people say that and I get what you're saying, Josh, and I don't disagree with it, but where they've got a priority list of stuff, because mine is very fluid. It changes all the time, you know? And so like, if everyone is upstairs hanging out and talking and whatever, that's where I'm going to be. But if everybody is upstairs and they turn a show on and no one is speaking and no one's interacting or whatever, I don't feel like that's good family time. So I kind of just sneak away, you know, and go do my own thing a lot of the times. And so it's like a very fluid thing. You know, I don't know. It's kind of interesting, but like for me, I feel like if I said I have to do X amount of time doing this or X amount of time doing that, it would be very rigid. But I'm wondering out loud if I have become that, because I started out by, you know, saying I'm going to spend a minimum of 2 hours a day doing this, or, you know, I'm going to put a page out a week, you know, and I know, Josh, you do like, I'm going to do like a panel a day.
Try to, yeah.
But I mean, you have those, whereas I've gotten to the point now where if I'm not on a deadline, I'm just like, I'm going to do what I want to do and what feels right. And then however productive or however much I get done, I'm going to get done. And then I'm going to go to sleep.
Yeah, but I've seen you vary that with projects. So it like if you have a film you want to get done, you buckle down and get that film done. You know, it's like, yeah. I think this kind of reinforces like the flexibility part where it's like it is kind of a project by project basis. But I definitely get the fluid thing on the priorities. I have like a priority list of just what is the most important thing just for my own values. Like, I think it's important for people to do. Like, I actually think it's a smart idea to like sit down and write out what are the highest priority things in your life, like period.
Yes.
And I think especially if you're in a relationship, like that's a really good thing to work out because you want to make sure your list kind of aligns a little bit. And, you know, for me, it's not like a really complex list and some of it shifts, but like the top 3 stay pretty much the same consistently, you know? Mm-hmm. And so, but like as for tasks and stuff, it's like those have to fluctuate based on the job, you know? That's part of why my lists aren't like, I don't do like yearly goals per se. I do daily lists. So it's like, I'm like, what do I have to do today? Also, I'm just a forgetful person. So I'll forget like stuff like take out the trash or I like buying shoes. I have to write that down so I don't forget it. Because otherwise I'll just autopilot and do my comics, you know?
Can I ask, and you tell me if I'm out of line here, how much of that do you think has to do with autism?
Oh, I think 100%. It's like weird, but it's just become more and more clear to me that I definitely think I'm pretty autistic. So I'm methodically obsessed with things and things I'm not interested in. It's really hard for me to be engaged in anything I'm not interested in.
And so do you think the list is a big part of that?
Oh yeah. I definitely, I would think so. Cause it's, it is kind of a priority and organization thing. Yeah.
Okay.
But also I see like the stuff you'll lay out on Trello to try to organize stuff. And I'm like, oh, I can't, I get too organized. So it's funny, but at the same time,
that's when I'm on a deadline.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
But you know,
because I use Trello for my list, and I know you use Trello. So if you're not using it for your list, what are you using it for?
No, I do. I use it, but it's only when I'm on deadline.
Okay.
So if I'm like I have this, I'm working on this music video, right? And I'm working with other people, and the easiest way to keep track of everything is to make lists and do that on Trello. But it's because that's a rigid structure. I've got client approvals. I've got deadlines.
Yeah.
I'm working with other people. I need to make sure that that's going on. But like this project, I don't know, maybe it's suffering because I'm not using lists, but like I don't have an idea of what parts I need or how many cameras I'm making or how long the animation is going to be, because I'm just going to make it. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, I do a lot of lists visually too, if you count like storyboards as a list, because I mean, a storyboard will turn into like a to-do list basically, because I look at each frame and say, what do I need to make that frame happen?
That's interesting.
But so maybe I'm doing lists, but I just do them more visually. But I don't know. But like you mentioned the trash, Josh, like if I go upstairs and the trash is full, then I take it out. I don't need that on a list.
Yeah, I mean, if I see it, yeah, for sure. But like I said, I can have something I know I need to do and instantly forget when I get to a task that I'm super hyper focused on. So like the second I do cartooning, I'm kind of doing cartooning, and then to break from that is really irritating and hard to kind of adjust to. And I think that's actually been a real strength of mine in art, but it is funny because I do think some of that ties into autism. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. Like I interrupt you guys all the time. I think some of that's a little autistic.
Really?
100%.
Oh,
I interrupt all the time. Maybe.
But if we didn't interrupt each other, there would just be one of us that talks, because all three of us just talk way too much.
That's totally.
We have to interrupt each other. It's not conversation.
I think one of these days, though, we should like South Park it and be like, "Will you let me finish? Will you let me?" Okay, I'm finished. Anyhow, but yeah, like I definitely, I suspect, honestly, the more I've read about autism, I think a lot of comic artists are probably slightly autistic. Like, just the diagnosis didn't really exist when we were younger, so it's like it's interesting, but a lot of it does kind of tie into behaviors that I could see. But I do think like everybody's got their methods, and that's one of the biggest ones that helps me be productive. Is like I make micro goals. I make big goals that don't have necessarily like a deadline. Like they're just big goals. And then I make micro goals after back planning that big goal. Like, so I back planned the big goal. Like my wife and I were heavily in debt, and like, pretty big amount.
Yeah.
And then I back planned it, and I was like, okay, I think we could probably get out in like about 2 years. And we could probably do it if we do this specific method, and that's going to require us to do this daily and this weekly. And we followed it, and it worked. I don't know how, but it did. So it's like, that's like the story of my creative life. Like that's the only way I get books done. Because anytime I've tried any other method, like looking for just a window and being kind of too loose about it, like nothing got done, And I remember it was like my mid-20s where it just dawned on me, like, I'm never going to make comics unless I actually just make comics, Yeah. I was like, here I want to be a cartoonist, and I've taken all these life drawing classes and stuff like that. And I'm still not a cartoonist. Like, what's going on?
I'm a big proponent of like, don't wait for inspiration to strike. You just go to work, and inspiration will show up.
Oh yeah.
So Scott.
Yes.
How do you balance?
What?
I don't know. I'm trying to figure. I don't even know if me saying that I don't really use lists is accurate. I'm not. I'm just. I don't know. But you
might not use them on a daily basis. But what I would say to you, if you use them when you're trying to get tasks done, I mean, when you have a deadline or whatever, if it's, I forgot how you phrased it, but does it get done then? if you do the list for that, does that thing get done?
Oh, definitely. But I mean, it gets done without the list too. But sometimes just a little bit. Okay. So maybe this question helped me maybe frame this in my mind. There's a really important part of my art that is creative play.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that lists kill that for me.
Okay. Yeah. That's, I can get behind that. Yeah.
So if I'm like, if somebody's paying me, or if I want to get a certain thing done, like I do the same thing as Josh, like I want to get done, X amount of animations this year, or, whatever. I mean, I did that, with Put Your Heart Into It.
100%.
I said, I want to get this done in 4 weeks. It took me 6 weeks. But yeah, I full on gave myself a deadline. So it's not just when I'm getting paid, but like when it's like crunch time, whether self-imposed or client imposed.
So
I usually do that. But when it's like playtime like this, I figure like, I'm just going to play with it. I feel like when I involve lists, it's not playing anymore. It's like execution.
Oh, that's weird. Cause like even with music, I don't really make a list, but I do have a self-imposed goal with that where I'm like, okay, I want to make an album by the end of the year just for fun. That's I guess that's the weird part, is like, that's also how I do fun. I have to have a plan. But that also has a downside of like when the unexpected happens, I have to work extra hard to do kind of a little bit of what Scott's talking about. I don't know if I'd call it meditation, but I would say like my faith is very important for keeping me sane, like in the areas of life that I can't map and plan and control. And that's my weakness. Like, I think it's a lot of people's weaknesses, but especially when, like, as I'm starting to realize more and more that I'm likely autistic, like this is a huge thing, is like a lack of control is a very scary thing for people who like rigid, like, kind of routines. Right. So something outside of a routine is like a huge deal. And the only thing that kind of puts me at peace with that is like prayer, and like, I'll say like the Holy Spirit, like, but that's for me. Right. But it's just like, that's the one thing that kind of sets my mind at ease. Like when it comes to, even at work, like if you're a director or whatever, and you're leading people, like inevitably there's curveballs that are crazy, and they'll happen every other day. And they could drive people nuts. And I've seen people who are like hold tight to the control thing, just fail hard in my position, because it's like you can't lead a creative team in a corporate environment and not be flexible. Like you have to be flexible because stuff changes, clients change, demands change, opportunities arise. If you don't jump on those opportunities, like you're just not going to move forward. So yeah, I don't know if that makes sense, but
yeah.
Scott, how do you because it's funny that I always think it's interesting you don't see yourself as like highly productive because you.
I don't think, did I say that?
Oh, I don't know. It sounded like that.
You were saying that you feel that you're less productive than us.
Yeah, that's insane, dude.
or yeah, I'd said that I feel like you guys are more productive than me, considering you both you create all this stuff, and you also have day jobs. Whereas me,
Scott, when you had a day job, you created just as much stuff as we do, and now you make more stuff.
Yeah,
than that.
That's true. That's true. Maybe I don't know if it's because maybe I'm not showing as much of this. A lot of the stuff I'm doing behind the scenes, I'm not really showing, and you're showing all this stuff. So maybe it seems like more, although I should know what I'm creating because it's me creating it. So, yeah. And maybe I'm picking, like right now I'm doing this, comic lettering masterclass, and I didn't every time I decide to do one of these digital products, I always always pick these really ambitious ones, and I swear next time this is the last. Next time I'm going to start making some smaller ones because I could probably make just as much. And again, it's not just the money. This is something that I'm passionate about, and I'm really getting into this whole. And it's teaching as I'm doing this. It's educating myself on lettering.
Yeah.
And really, I think this thing's going to be amazing. And the funny thing is, it's so hard to do. It's so hard to do research on this just to find like good lettering. Like if you Google comic book lettering, you get a bunch of crappy garbage, pow, bam, boof, boom, all this stuff, clip art, and it's just garbage. And it's really hard to find examples. Like you can look like Todd Klein's famous letter. He's got a really good site with some good examples, but it's really hard to find good examples of lettering unless you're just digging through your long boxes or,
Yeah, and especially if you're talking traditional, because I'm like, if I think lettering, I think Chris Ware. That's like the biggest thing of Chris Ware is like Chris Ware is the best letterer. But another oh man, there's a couple people that come to mind, but
Will Eisner with his title sequences and stuff, and
you know who's a contemporary that's really good is Wooten, Russ Wooten.
Okay, does he have stuff online that you can look him up? Like,
well, you can talk to him on Twitter. He's very accessible. But I've had several conversations with him about lettering because he letters a ton. Like I realized, I was like, oh man, I love this book, and the letterer who did this is awesome. And then there's this other guy who does this book, and then it turns out that like these 4 books that looked completely different, but the lettering really matched the mood of the book. It was all Russ Wooten.
Yeah.
Isn't that I think weird? You pointed that out in one of the videos you guys did.
Isn't that a trip when you see that happen though with an artist you really dig? Where like that's how I found out about oh my gosh, Charles Burns. Like I remember as a kid, I had like these punk albums, and I was like, this art's really cool. I love this style. And then I'd buy another album, and I'd be like, I love this style that these artists are using. And then like I'd be, like at a skateboard shop and see like, that art's really cool. And I kept like for about 10 years of my life, I thought this was just a style. And then I found out it's all one dude. Like, and with lettering, it's totally true. Cause like Jessica Hish is like that, where it's like, I saw her stuff everywhere. And every time I was like, that just sings to me. And I don't know what it is, but there's something beautiful about that lettering. And I was like, I love that style. And it was the same thing where when I realized it's all her, I was like, oh, it makes sense, But it is funny how like with great designers, like you can almost like Chip Kidd's a great example of that too, where you're just like, man, that Jurassic Park logo is pretty cool. That book cover looks great. It's like, oh, he did all the book covers, all of them.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
That was a total.
Yeah, I forgot where I was. I kind of got on a tangent there.
I don't know.
I was talking about taking these big projects or whatever. But yeah. I mean, I don't think that I think I'm pretty productive. I mean, now I feel like I feel like I said, I bit off more than I could chew because I'm going through this training where the whole idea is to set goals and meet it. So I try to be more ambitious than I usually am. And I didn't take into consideration, what it was going to be, all the other aspects of my life and integrating that into the equation. So, and just having time to enjoy not that I don't enjoy myself when I'm working, because I love what I do, but I want a more well-rounded life, I guess.
Yeah.
So what does that look like to you?
That's a good question.
So, it's all about freedom and abundance. Getting to a point where, part of the when I was setting, and even when I set out my goals, it was when I laid them out in order, and I did this subconsciously, but it was the business stuff was first, and then the family stuff, and then the community service and stuff as I went down the list. And I guess in my mind, the idea was that, I need to get to the point where the business is running at a certain, I'm bringing in a certain amount of money, and that will afford me the time to then, spend time with the family and do all this other stuff. When instead of doing, you probably, I mean, there's a number that I'm looking for, and yeah, I guess I can get to that number, but am I going to be satisfied with that, or is that going to change? Probably not. So it's just a matter of rethinking everything, how I can have this abundant lifestyle where I have, I'm able to create the cool stuff that I want to create, and I'm able to, make a living, a good living, not just getting by, but making a good living off my art, and also, have time for family and being able to just at the drop of the hat, like, oh, okay, let's go do this, or like, oh, this Florida thing's coming up, not even worrying about it. Like, I mean, I'm committed to, if that ends up happening, being like, oh, cool, let's do that, because I'm probably not going to I'm not going to have too many opportunities of that. So seeing those opportunities, but there was still a part of me that was like, ooh, I've got all this work to do. Am I really going to have time to do that? But get to the point where I'm comfortable enough that it will get done. My girlfriend posted in the chat earlier, 100% is possible 100% of the time. So I mean, you can have all this without sacrificing every different areas of your life, and that's what I'm working towards. So
I like that idea. I think the mindset helps. Here's the thing that I find, like, really, I'm gonna mention my belief, and I want to be really clear. I'm not like trying to convert or preach to anyone. I'm just talking about my own thing. But it's like with me, it's like one of the things I love about like stories about Christ was that he was speaking against a religious system that required works to get into heaven. Like the idea of like, you follow these 10 rules, which like no one can follow all of. And then if you're perfect and you don't make any mistakes, then you're okay and you get to walk through the gates of heaven or whatever. Like that was kind of the religious system. And he sort of went against that, was like, actually, that's impossible. And that's one of the things I like about Christianity. I'm not saying it's the only philosophy that has that element to it, but I always, for me, like even when I was an atheist, it's like I've always had this, because I'm a skeptic, I always get super skeptical of anything that doesn't allow for humanity. And so I think any philosophy you have that's going to help is great. But if it's requiring you to just work with no allowances of like the need for mercy or for mercy on yourself, right? Like where it's like, I mean, hell, if you make a list of like 5 million things, you could possibly get it done. You can also fail, right? You could also spend time with your family and say intend everything well and say like the wrong word to your kid, not like a bad word, just something maybe they weren't in the right mood and like you just didn't read it right, and maybe that causes some like emotional harm. Like there's inevitably going to be things like that. And like one of the things I like about, and I guess what I'm saying is like one of the things I like about a good philosophy, it doesn't have to be my beliefs, but I think a good philosophy is going to allow human beings to fail every once in a while. I think failure is really important too. And I think proceeding with the idea of like failure isn't an option is really important. But when you do actually have a moment of failure, I think it's really super important to just embrace it and just kind of move forward. Because like it, like let's say you do the Florida thing, and that means you fail at the self-imposed goal to like hit whatever. It's just a self-imposed goal. There's no literal roadmap to your life like written out. And I think that's actually one of the coolest things. And for me, I find a lot of comfort in that. I know that's weird, but it's just like, I wouldn't personally ever subscribe to a belief system where I would have to be perfect, because I can't be. I know that about myself. And if I have to be perfect, I'm screwed. Like if my future is dependent on me being perfect 100% of the time, I am not going to make it in that future. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, I'm rambling. Sorry. I find comfort in that, is my point. Cause like I do have a tendency to beat myself up a little bit when I don't hit goals. And I had it more often, and I've gotten more and more comfortable with just kind of leaning into it and just being like, and not to give myself an excuse and be like, well, no one's perfect, because I think that's a cop out too, right? But just allow yourself to be human, I don't know. So part of that also means being flexible with things like, like every once in a while, like especially pre-COVID, like I'd have a friend call and be like, I'm going to this show and it's really fun. You want to come? And I'd be like, yeah, I'm dropping my plans. That sounds fun, or I don't know. Does that at all hit home with you, Cory? I don't know. I don't know if I feel like I ranted a little too long there.
I don't know. I think the way that I travel might explain more of where I'm coming from. But like, when I travel, I like just kind of like show up to a place, and I have realized that this is horribly inconvenient for other people, and it doesn't work for other people. But like when I'm doing it, I'm just like, oh look, a historical sign on the side of the freeway. I'm gonna just divert there. Like I used to do this when all the time, and when I with my family, I realized that is like an anxiety trigger for my wife, because she's like, let's get there, let's do this thing, and I'm like, cool, a fort, and we'll like go off and look at some fort in the middle of the, it's like, and she's like, that added 2.5 hours to our trip. I'm like, yeah, but that 2.5 hours was like a surprise.
Yeah.
It was like a thing, and so we still end up getting there. And my point to her is like, this is a 17-hour drive that we're doing today. No matter what we do or when we get there, it's going to suck. Like, it's not like you're going to get there and be like, wow, good thing we saved that 2 hours and it took us 17 hours instead of 19 hours. It's going to suck the whole time, right? But like, in it sucking, every once in a while, like maybe you go hang out at a park.
Dude, I am all about that. Like if I do choose to, especially like do a long distance travel, dude, some of the most fun you can have on a long distance trip is like stopping at the weird giant alligator thing on the side of the road. And you're like, I don't know, this looks like a really weird, cool museum that has like a 3-headed alligator. And I want to see this thing. And you go in this like weird rinky dink gas station, and there's a window with like a stuffed 3-headed alligator and a bunch of like souvenirs for it. That is some of the coolest stuff about, especially like the Nevada, Utah, like that whole stretch. Like, that is the way to do it. Like you should not ever just do a straight shot. Like if you do a straight shot on that drive, you're missing so much fun.
Anywhere founded by Mormons, you have to know that there's going to be some really odd, weird roadside attractions that you're just like, why is this here? That's the other thing I think that like drives a lot of my art is like this insatiable curiosity for like the story. Yeah. I haven't done this yet, but I have driven by it dozens of times. There is someone living in a trailer hundreds of miles away from everything in the middle of Nevada, and you can see the trailer from I-15. It's like miles off because like there's nothing, right? There's no mountains or anything, so you can see a really long way.
I'm sorry, Cory, I just want to correct you on that. That should be the 15, right? I'm just kidding.
It's only the 15 in California.
No.
So like the 101, the 1, the 5, but you go a little bit east and everything is I-15.
I'm joking around.
But anyway, like one of these days, I want to go knock on that guy's door and just be like, "Hey, please tell me all about your life. How did you end up here? It's like obvious that somebody lives there."
If he's a secluded recluse, though, there's a likelihood, and in your area of town, like he's probably packing heat, so you may not actually make it out past that door.
No, I understand.
But I would love to hear his story. Like that would be a great story. Like what the hell drove him, right?
I just wanted, like at some point in time, that trailer wasn't there, and there wasn't a family that lived there.
Yeah.
And then one day, a series of things happened where the best decision that they made was to live in the middle of the Nevada desert, 2 miles away from the freeway, hundreds of miles from any town. And is it like, is this Uncle Eddie like in real life? Who is this person? How do they get their groceries? What do they eat? Do they trap lizards? Do they drink out of, like, is there plumbing out there? Like, I have so many questions. And like, so throughout like this whole artistic process of like doing stuff, sometimes, and this is a huge problem to productivity, but like I'll be doing something and then I'm like, I wonder what that button does. And I will go down a rabbit hole about that button in Illustrator that I like didn't see before, and then learn everything I possibly can about it, and then build a project around using that button because now I know things about it. And like this is why I will never like earn enough money to quit my job in art because that's it to me is fascinating. It's the same thing as like the biggest ball of twine. Yep, I'm definitely going to pull off the side of the road because I don't care about the biggest ball of twine, but I want to meet the people that live in the gift shop next to the biggest ball of twine and talk to them about their day. And like, what is that like? Like there is a Bigfoot gift shop basically in like Northern California in the middle of nowhere.
In there, dude. Awesome gift shop.
Yes. I don't really care about Bigfoot or the gift shop or anything, but the strangest people live and work at that gift shop. And I just love talking to them. I want to know how they feel about things. I want to know, why they're here. Why did you end up living like forever away from like, what decisions in your life brought you to this point? I just want to know everybody's story. And like, it's the same thing with production as I'm going down this thing and I'm like, I bet that there's a plugin that does this repetitive thing that I'm doing right now, because I used to do this hand illustration stuff and I would like space it all out, or whatever myself. And it would take hours. And I'm like, I bet somebody has written a script, and somebody did. It was actually, they wrote it and released it about 6 months after I was doing this. But like the guy that runs battleaxe.co, he wrote a script called Time Lord. And like, now I'm super excited about it. And now like every animation I'm doing, I'm like trying to figure out ways to like work stuff like that in, but it was all because I was just playing with stuff. Like if I ever get really optimized and really good at things and then stop playing with it and I don't learn anything else, I would rather be dead.
Cory, have you heard the song by Weird Al, the biggest ball of twine in Minnesota?
Oh yeah, that's a fantastic song.
Okay, great, yeah.
I think that's probably why I said the biggest ball of twine.
When you said that, I was wondering if there actually was one, because I know there's the biggest something similar, but when you said ball of twine, I'm like, oh, was that a real thing from that song? I figured I made it up. Okay.
I will say I'm a junkie for like Americana type stuff, like where it's like a weird truck stop or crazy diner, or like
it's so great.
Yeah, the signage too.
The biggest ball of twine is in Branson, Missouri.
There is one. Okay.
Yeah. It's a nylon twine, and it was built by J.C. Payne of Valley View, Texas.
So we got a question in the chats that's asking, what is your goal on art? And they were saying, my goal is creating stories and concepts of characters. What's your goal in art, Scott?
My goal right now is to make a living, not just make a living, but to not be beholden to clients or a company or anything like that, to make a good living just off my art from the things that I create passively, and that I can create something, I can put it out in the world, and that it will bring back the means for me to make more of that stuff and continue to do that. So that's my goal.
So is that your goal because you want the artistic freedom to be able to make whatever you want and not have to do other things? Or is that your goal because there's validation in wanting people that want the stuff that you're making? Or
I think a little bit of both, actually. Yeah. I want to create the freedom that I can create either more of this stuff or create something entirely new. I want that freedom, but I also get validation when I put something out there and it's successful and people like it. So I want more of that, you know, and it's not always like that. I've done things that I put out that just like haven't sold one, you know, but so yeah, I mean, it's happening now. It's not happening to the scale that I need it to, but it's just a matter of doing more of it, you know, building off of what's working and doing more of it. So that's my goal. But I think that's a good question to end on because we are getting close. So what about you two?
So I want to say mine because I tend to go long and I don't want to cut off Cory. My main goal is just to make graphic novels that tell good stories and hopefully have readers for them. So like 2 stories that's out right now. That was one of my main goals, but my goal is to just continue that, finish that book and continue making books like it and trying to make literary work. So I want to make comics that should last, whether they do or not. That's what I want to make. So
I don't know. I hate setting goals. I think, if I'm being honest, I think recognition is helpful. I think there's some of that. That's probably not a high goal, or I'd be doing more like self-promotion. I'd be still chasing after an agent or whatever, you know, or trying to get things published. So, but I think that is a minor thing. I enjoy being recognized for stuff, but I think mostly, if I'm living authentically, I'm making art, and if I'm not, then I don't feel right. So if I'm, I think that's the biggest thing for me is you know, if I'm being honest with myself, then living authentically it somehow involves art and creation. So
yeah, I love that you mentioned it because we've talked about that, where it's like Cory and I both have had periods in our life where we're just doing corporate work and like the day job stuff, you know, which is fulfilling. But I think both of us hit like really low lows because it's just, I think when you're an artist, it's like, yeah, I mean, you're going to have that wizard van. So anyhow,
it all comes down to the wizard van.
It does.
That's the most important thing.
I had that come to my head this morning.
Josh, if you don't have a wizard van sometime in the next 5 years, I will be disappointed. Now that's a goal that I want to set for you. I want you to have a wizard van because of your neighbor's truck.
I would have to hire an airbrush artist because I can't do airbrush. So I would have to like somehow convince like a brilliant artist like Jeff to do like a badass wizard on a van, which he wouldn't want to do. I don't know though. I could see Jeff getting into that too.
You know what?
It would be fun. I would. That would be a fun thing. But
at one point in time, I had a dream to convert a van into the Mystery Machine from Scooby-Doo. Not because I really like Scooby-Doo, but because I just think that is like the best designed vehicle in the 80s cartoons ever.
That would be cool to do. Yeah.
Super recognizable. But yeah, but then you'd be the guy that I don't like the assumptions that people make about that, but like, I just think that's a really cool design. But then you'd have like the people that are like, oh, so you really like Scooby-Doo? I'm like, yeah, it's all right. I just really like this car.
All right, guys. Well, what do you say we wrap this one up?
Word.
I think we could probably revisit this topic again and keep talking about it. But anyway, so Josh, where can everyone find you?
So you can find me at joshuakemble.com and also just go get also Joshua Kemble, Kemble on YouTube. And then you can also go get this book right now from Amazon. Well, it's actually from Marcosia, but you can buy it on Amazon. It's my graphic novel about faith and mental illness. Frank's trying to convince me to do a live stream tonight, which we might do. Well, I might do because I still got to finish this thing. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
Yeah.
And Cory, what about you?
You can find my stuff at CoryKerr.com. if you click on what's new, there's some new stuff there. And yeah, that's good. So you can watch if you're into like learning how to animate. I've got like playlists on that, and I'm pretty happy with the most recent animation that I did, which you can see on Instagram. And you can see the process of how I did that on the most recent video that I did on YouTube. So there are those, and yeah, I don't know. I'm down to live stream more because I'm gonna be up for hours working on this. So.
You guys should check that out though, especially like just go look at the cool Wacom animation, guys. Scott, where can everybody find your stuff, and how can they keep track of this crazy channel? Because it's like on your channel. I feel like last week it was on mine. I don't know how to keep track of this. How do we do that?
If you don't know, I think
rude if Josh.
I think Josh actually knows, but. You can find my stuff at circleworks.com. You can also find my YouTube videos, especially the Making Comics 101 series on my YouTube channel, which is you're on it right now. But you might not always be on it if you're on the Artcasters, just like Josh says. Last week it was on Josh's channel, and last week we had a different guest. It's kind of crazy. Josh should know, but some of you people might not know. And if you don't know,
I just forget. You got to remind me, Scott. How do I keep track of this thing?
You can the easiest way to keep track of who we're going to be on, who our guest is, what day, all that stuff, is to join our mailing list. And we don't spam you or anything like that. We just usually about 30 minutes before we go live, we'll send out a newsletter. It's basically just a little one-page thing with a link. It'll describe what video is, what the topic is, who the guest is, and a link that you can click on to come here, because YouTube doesn't always notify people. So as we talked
Scott,
about the hour.
I am super excited for the day that you decide to spam that list. Because every time you talk about it, you say that we don't.
I don't know what we would spam it for. We don't do it. When we do the Artcasters, the only thing we do is the Artcasters. So yeah, we don't run any we don't sell anything branded under the Art. Maybe we'll have to do some Artcasters t-shirts or something.
Yeah.
Start spamming people.
Partner with some health product companies.
Yeah. So, all right, guys. And I wanted to also thank the chat. There was a lot. We had a pretty lively chat tonight. Sorry we didn't get to everyone, but we were reading it and everything. So thank you to everyone in the chat, and we will see everyone next week. Who knows when? Well, you'll know if you check out that if you get on the mail list. So all right, we'll see you then.